I'm shaking, and I can't stop replaying the events in my head. I need to get this off my chest before I lose it completely. I can barely breathe, and my hands won't stop trembling. I know people will probably say I'm overreacting, but right now, I feel like I'm completely losing control. I've rewritten this so many times, trying to get the words out, but nothing feels right. I don't even know where to start. I've been with Jake for almost 4 years. It hasn't been perfect, no relationship is, but we've always had a good understanding. We met in college, at a random party thrown by mutual friends. I was never the party girl, but something about Jake made me feel completely at ease. He was funny, smart, and had this way of making me feel like the most important person in the room. We talked for hours that night, and somehow it just felt like we clicked. By the end of the night, we exchanged numbers, and well, things just kind of fell into place after that. We moved in together after a year, and everything felt like it was heading in the right direction. He made me laugh, we got along with each other's friends, and we built a comfortable life together. He even moved to another city for a job, and I followed because I trusted him. We found a cute little apartment, and I thought for the first time in my life I was on the right path. This was it. But then came the weekend of my birthday. I've always loved my birthday. It's not about extravagant gifts or big parties, but about feeling loved and appreciated. It's always been a special day for me. The last few years, Jake had made it a point to make my birthday stand out. The year before, he surprised me with a romantic getaway. We stayed in this beautiful cabin in the woods, just the two of us, and it was perfect. The year before that, he'd planned a dinner with all our closest friends, and it was the most fun I had in ages. So when he told me 3 weeks before my birthday that he had a mandatory work trip planned that weekend, I was disappointed but tried to be understanding. He explained that it was some sort of conference, a big deal for his career, and that he simply couldn't get out of it. His voice sounded genuinely upset, like he hated the timing too, so I didn't push it. He promised we'd celebrate when he got back, maybe even go on a mini vacation, something special. I tried to let it go. I thought it was just bad luck. He seemed so apologetic, like he really cared. The night before he left, he gave me a small gift, just a pair of simple silver earrings. It wasn't extravagant, but it was thoughtful. He apologized again for having to miss my birthday, kissed me on the forehead, and said he wished he could stay. I helped him pack his work clothes, his laptop, even the ridiculous team-building activity clothes that companies always seem to make you wear. I smiled, feeling so stupid for trusting him completely. The weekend came and went. I spent my birthday alone. I ordered takeout, watched a few episodes of a new show I'd been meaning to binge, and FaceTimed my parents. They wished me a happy birthday, but it just felt hollow. My mom asked if Jake was doing something special for me, and I told her about the work trip. She seemed surprised but didn't say much. I figured she was just trying to be polite, but now I realized she must have suspected something was off. By Monday, I had convinced myself that it was fine. Jake came home from his mandatory work retreat, looking tired but happy to be back. He handed me a bag of fancy chocolates and a bottle of wine from the resort, claiming they were from his team-building weekend. He went on about boring meetings, corporate exercises, and all the fun he'd had. I didn't mind that much. I was just happy to see him, even if he wasn't there for my birthday. Everything felt normal again, and I thought that maybe I had overreacted. But then, just a few hours after he got home, Kayla texted me. Kayla. I don't know why she texted me. We aren't super close, just acquaintances really. But when I saw the message, I figured it was probably something random. She said she needed to talk, and when I called her, she sounded off. I could hear hesitation in her voice, like she wasn't sure if she should even be saying what she was about to. Is Jake home? She asked after a long silence. I told her no, he wasn't. Okay, this is gonna sound weird, she started. But I saw something on Instagram, and I don't know if it means anything, but I think I saw your sister with Jake. I'm not sure if you know about it, but I thought you should. I just wanted to make sure. My heart stopped. My sister? What was she talking about? Kayla didn't say much else, but she sent me a screen recording of what she saw. It was a simple video from a spa, just a pool scene, nothing too special. But there in the background was Jake and my sister, Tina. They were together, at the spa. My sister, the woman who I trusted more than anyone, who I'd always had a close bond with. I couldn't believe it. There was Jake, his arm around her, her head resting on his shoulder. They were smiling and laughing, looking completely comfortable with each other, like nothing else in the world mattered. Like I didn't even exist. The room felt like it was spinning. I replayed the video over and over again. I couldn't stop looking at it. There was Jake, wearing the same vest I helped him pack, looking all too happy to be with my sister. And there was Tina, wearing the earrings I had gotten for my birthday. I didn't want to believe it, but it was undeniable. It was them without a doubt. I checked the bank account. A $1,200 withdrawal from the joint account on Friday before my birthday. It didn't make sense. There was no explanation for the charge. I checked his personal account. Nothing unusual there either, but my heart was already pounding in my chest. Then I remembered something, my birthday money. Every year, my grandmother sent me $800 in cash. She was old-fashioned, but I loved that little tradition. I tucked it into my wallet, planning to deposit it later. But when I checked, it was gone. I called the spa. At first, I just asked for a receipt for expense reporting. The woman on the phone was polite and helpful. She looked up the reservation under Jake's name. When she confirmed the details, I felt like the world had crumbled beneath me. The reservation was for their romantic weekend package. The total was $1,150. Paid partially with a credit card, and the rest? $800 in cash. My birthday money. They took my birthday money, my gift from my grandmother, to pay for their romantic weekend getaway. I felt numb. How could Jake do this to me? How could Tina? I didn't even know what to do next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I waited until Jake got home. I didn't say a word at first. I just showed him the video Kayla had sent. His face went from white to red. He tried to make excuses, saying that Tina was just going through a tough time and he was trying to be there for her. I didn't care. I pulled up the spa reservation details on my phone and showed him. Explain this, I demanded. That's when everything changed. He admitted it. He admitted everything. He and Tina had been seeing each other for months. He didn't even look guilty anymore. He just laughed, like it was nothing. You never deserved a gift anyway, he said, as if it was all my fault. At least Tina knows how to keep a man happy. I could feel the tears welling up, but I didn't let them fall. I stood up, walked to our bedroom, and slammed the door behind me. I didn't hear him come after me. He hasn't spoken to me since. He's tried, texting me apologies, telling me he was sorry, trying to act like nothing happened. But I can't look at him. I can't be around him. Everything about him now makes my skin crawl. The days that followed were a blur. Jake would leave for work like everything was fine, like nothing had changed. And I would stay in our empty house, feeling numb. I kept going through the motions, getting up, going to work, and trying to distract myself. But everything felt hollow. It was like I was walking through someone else's life, not my own. The betrayal weighed on me, suffocating me, but I couldn't let anyone see it. Not yet. I didn't tell my parents. Not yet. It felt like too much to say out loud, and I wasn't ready for their disappointment. I didn't know what to say to them. How do you tell your parents that your husband and your sister were sleeping together behind your back? How do you explain the pain of betrayal in a way that doesn't make you sound like a victim? So, I kept it to myself for a while longer. Jake continued to make excuses for his actions. He'd apologize, tell me how much he regretted everything, how sorry he was. But the apologies felt empty, like he was saying what he thought I wanted to hear, not what he truly felt. I knew he didn't care. If he did, he wouldn't have done what he did in the first place. And then came the text from Tina. At first, I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too hurt, too angry, too betrayed. But the message lingered in my mind all night, and by morning, I found myself staring at it again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she wrote. She tried to sound apologetic, but I saw through it. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew what she was taking from me. And yet, she still had the nerve to text me like nothing happened. I couldn't bring myself to respond. But that's when things took another turn. I received a call from my friend Allison, the one who worked at the bank. I didn't tell her everything, but I gave her enough to know that things were rocky with Jake. She offered to help me look through our finances, just to see where I stood. At that point, I was starting to feel like I was losing control, like everything was slipping away from me. When I gave her permission to look through the accounts, I didn't realize just how deep Jake's betrayal ran. Allison helped me trace the financial transactions, little withdrawals for things that didn't add up. Groceries, but there was never anything new in the fridge. Work trips, but his calendar didn't match up with the dates of those trips. And then, we uncovered something even worse. Jake had 3 credit cards I knew nothing about. 3. 2 of them had my name on them as an authorized user, but I'd never received a card. I'd never gotten a statement. I didn't even know that was possible. But when Allison pulled up the records, there it was, fancy restaurants he'd gone to, hotel stays I'd never heard of, a $300 necklace bought just days before Tina's birthday. I couldn't believe it. I confronted Jake that morning. I was shaking, but I needed answers. I needed to understand how far this had gone. He got defensive immediately. He told me I was too controlling, that I needed to trust him more. When I asked about the credit cards, he insisted they were for emergencies. Sure, emergency romantic weekends with my sister. I lost it then. I grabbed his favorite coffee mug, the one with the Star Wars design he was so proud of, and threw it against the wall. It shattered into pieces, and for a moment, it felt like I was shattering everything I thought I knew about him, about us. Jake stormed out of the house, calling me crazy, telling me I was insane for throwing his mug. I didn't care. Nothing he said or did mattered anymore. The next day, I went to a divorce lawyer. I wasn't sure if I was ready to leave him, but I needed to know my options. I needed to figure out what I would do if I decided this was the end. The lawyer was kind, and though it wasn't the easiest conversation, I felt like I finally had some clarity. She helped me gather the right documents and advised me not to leave the house yet. We talked about dividing our assets, protecting myself financially. She even suggested that I start tracking our spending, especially anything that came from our joint account versus personal accounts. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the affair. This was about everything. His lies, his theft, his complete disregard for me and the life we had built. I knew that I had to start preparing for the worst. And then came the final straw. One evening, I came home from work to find a package waiting for me. I hadn't been expecting anything, but when I opened it, I found an expensive watch inside. It was a $2,100 watch, something Jake had been eyeing for months. I didn't even have to ask where it came from. I knew he had used our joint account to buy it, just like he had used it to pay for the weekend getaway with Tina. I wasn't going to let it slide. Not this time. I went straight to the store that same afternoon. I didn't even care how petty it seemed. I wanted the money back. I wanted him to see the consequences of his actions. I returned the watch to the store, and within an hour, the money was back in our joint account. I'd already set up an alert on my new bank account, and I knew exactly when to transfer my share into it. Jake had no idea what had just happened. He didn't know I had moved my share of the money out of our joint account. He didn't know I had taken control of my finances, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was taking back some power. But it didn't stop him from trying to act like everything was fine. He came home that night, carrying flowers and pretending like he hadn't just stolen from me, like we hadn't just crossed a line that couldn't be undone. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this, we can work through it." His voice was soft, almost pleading. I couldn't even look at him. The flowers sat in my hands like an insult, and the apologies felt like a slap in the face. How could he say that after everything? How could he still think that everything could be fixed with a few words, with a few flowers? I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep playing along with this lie. "I don't think you get it," I said quietly, my voice trembling with the weight of what was happening. "You don't get it because you don't care. If you did, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have betrayed me. You wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have stolen from me, Jake. And you certainly wouldn't have had an affair with my sister." That stopped him cold. He opened his mouth like he was about to argue, but no words came out. Instead, he just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I could tell he was trying to muster up some defense, something to make him seem less like the selfish, cruel person he had become. But I was done. I was done listening to the excuses. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity. I had spent so much time trying to rationalize his behavior, trying to convince myself that he didn't mean it, that maybe he was just confused, that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. The next day, I went back to the lawyer. This time, I didn't need to ask for advice. I knew what I had to do. We moved forward with the divorce papers, and I started the process of preparing for the life I was going to rebuild on my own. It was terrifying, but also freeing in a way I couldn't describe. And then, just when I thought I had everything figured out, I got a message from Tina. She texted me from a new number. It was a pathetic message, a desperate cry for attention. "I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you." She didn't even have the decency to acknowledge what she had done, to truly apologize for how much pain she had caused. Instead, it was all about her, how bad she felt, how much she was struggling with everything that had happened. I didn't respond. But the next day, she showed up at my work. I didn't expect it. I wasn't prepared. But there she was, standing outside my office building, looking like she had been crying for hours. She called my name, and for a moment, I almost froze. Every instinct in me told me to walk away, to ignore her, to pretend I didn't hear her. But I didn't. I turned around, and there she was, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "I never meant for things to happen like this," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was just helping Jake, you know? He said it was complicated, and I thought it was just, I don't know. I never meant for this to ruin everything." I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no relief. Just emptiness. The sister I had once loved was standing in front of me, trying to explain away the destruction she had caused, trying to make it sound like she was the victim. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell at her, to tell her how she had ruined my life, but I didn't. Instead, I simply said, "I can't help you." She took a step closer, her voice dropping as she whispered, "You're not the only one who's been hurt." I stared at her, not feeling a single thing. All I saw was the person who had betrayed me, the person who had torn my world apart for nothing. I turned and walked away, not looking back. I didn't hear from her for a few days. But then came another message. I think he still loves you, it read. We made a mistake. He didn't mean it. I couldn't believe it. After everything, she was still trying to fix it, trying to make it all go away. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Jake, without a word. I wanted him to know that she was still in his corner, still trying to justify what they had done. He called me immediately. The desperation in his voice was palpable, but I didn't answer. An hour later, he sent me a text. It wasn't like that. She's lying. I never loved her. I forwarded that to Tina without comment. I wanted them both to see the hypocrisy of their lies, to understand that their actions had consequences. The days dragged on, and I felt like I was stuck in some never-ending cycle of betrayal and disappointment. Every time I thought I was making progress, something would happen to drag me back into the mess that Jake and Tina had created. I started focusing on what I could control, my own life. I went to work, went out with friends, kept moving forward. But the weight of everything still pressed down on me, especially when Jake kept reaching out. He called, texted, left voicemails. He apologized over and over, switching between guilt and defensiveness. At first, I tried to ignore it. Then I started documenting everything. Every message, every missed call, every attempt he made to manipulate me into responding. I saved them all, knowing that I might need it later. And then came the biggest shock yet. A few days after I forwarded Jake's message to Tina, I received a formal email from his work. It wasn't from HR directly, but from their legal department. They claimed they were conducting an internal review to confirm some rumors about Jake's personal life, including allegations of infidelity. It was framed as a simple fact check, but I knew exactly what it meant. I was furious. How dare he drag me into his mess at work? He had betrayed me, stolen my money, and now he was trying to protect his job, all while making me look like the crazy one. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them everything, the whole ugly story, but I knew I had to play it smart. I couldn't let Jake control this narrative any longer. I immediately forwarded the email to my lawyer. She called me within minutes. We'll respond carefully, she said, but we'll make sure they know the truth. This is your opportunity to set the record straight. Together, we drafted a brief statement confirming that I had filed for divorce due to clear evidence of Jake's infidelity. I attached the screenshots of the texts between Jake and Tina, the spa receipts, the photos. I made sure everything was concise and factual. No drama, just the truth. An hour later, I received an auto-reply. It was a relief. They had received my response. I knew they would investigate the claims, but at least I had told my side. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't the one being dragged through the mud. I wasn't just some bystander in this mess. I was taking control. But even that didn't stop Jake. He kept trying. He called me at least 3 times a day. He sent texts asking to meet up, to talk, to fix things. He begged, pleaded, made promises he had no intention of keeping. One night, he even showed up at my work to talk and tried to convince my coworkers that we were just having a rough patch. He acted like everything was normal, but I saw through him. He didn't care. He just wanted to get out of the consequences of his actions. The worst part was when he reached out to my parents. He called them, asked if they could talk, told them he was sorry. They didn't respond the way he expected. My dad barely said anything. He just asked if I was safe, if I needed anything. But I could tell by his voice that he was hurt. My mom called me later, her voice full of concern. He's not the person you thought he was, she said, sounding like she was trying to protect me. I wasn't ready to speak to my parents about everything yet. It felt too raw, too painful. But I knew they would support me no matter what. They just wanted me to be okay, and I knew they had my back. That was all that mattered now. I started making plans. I started looking for my own place. I wanted to be free of him, free of this entire situation. I had no idea what was ahead, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay in this relationship any longer. I couldn't keep living in a house that felt like a prison, with reminders of the betrayal lurking around every corner. And then, one night, I made a decision. I called my cousin Jason, the one who had the rental property. I didn't even get through the full story before he said, "It's yours. No pressure. Pay what you can. You need a place to stay." I could barely speak. I was so overwhelmed by the relief I felt that I couldn't even get the words out. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you so much." I started moving my things over while Jake was at work. Just the essentials at first: clothes, documents, things I couldn't live without. I had to make it quick, but I couldn't leave everything behind. I took the time to go through all the old photos, all the memories we had made together. It hurt to look at them, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house. It wasn't ours anymore. It was his and Tina's now. The hardest part was seeing the empty spaces where our life used to be. The kitchen table where we had shared so many meals. The couch where we used to curl up together and watch movies. It was all gone now, shattered by lies and betrayal. The final blow came when I found out Jake had made one last attempt to save his reputation. He had bought an expensive watch, charging it to our joint account. He told me it was for work, but I knew better. It was just another one of his lies. Another piece of his facade that he was trying to hold on to. That night, I drove to the store and returned the watch. The store refunded the full amount, and the money went back into our joint account. But I had already set up an account alert, and I knew exactly when to move my share of the money into a separate account. When I returned home, Jake had no idea what had just happened. He didn't know I had taken control of my finances. He didn't know I was already planning my escape. Jake didn't have a clue what was coming. He continued with his usual routine, acting like everything was fine between us, as if the world hadn't just been torn apart. But I could see the cracks in his facade. The texts, the phone calls, the pleading apologies, they were all part of a game he was trying to play, trying to pretend like everything could be fixed if he just showed up with the right words. I wasn't buying it anymore. Every time he would leave for work, I felt like I was holding my breath, wondering if this would be the day everything would finally fall apart. The tension in the house was unbearable, even when he wasn't there. It was as if his presence weighed down the air itself. And each time I glanced at the empty spaces, the broken pieces of what was once our life together, the anger bubbled up inside me all over again. How dare he? How dare he think I would forgive him after everything he'd done? Jake tried to reach out every day. Sometimes it was through angry messages. Other times, it was a pathetic apology, begging for another chance. The most manipulative one came a few days after I'd moved out, when he texted me saying, "I'm not the person I was. I've changed. Please let's talk. I want to fix this." But I wasn't interested in hearing it anymore. I had already seen the truth, and I wasn't going to let him erase it with empty promises. So I stopped responding. I didn't let him drag me back into his web of lies. Things with Tina didn't get any better either. She kept texting me from new numbers, from friends' phones, always the same pleading messages, begging me to forgive her. But I couldn't forgive her. I didn't even want to. What she had done, the way she had destroyed everything we had, couldn't be undone with a few sorry messages. She had chosen Jake over me, and I couldn't let her back into my life. One day, after a particularly desperate text from her, I couldn't take it anymore. I forwarded the message to Jake, knowing he was still trying to keep his options open with both of us. The message from Tina said, "I know you still love me. Don't let her ruin everything. We can fix this. Just give me a chance." Jake responded almost immediately. His text was a blur of words, desperate to make it seem like Tina was lying, trying to convince me that he never loved her, that it was all just a mistake. He told me how much he regretted everything, how he wanted to fix things with me. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Tina. I wanted her to see what Jake was saying behind her back. I wanted her to realize just how much he was playing both of us. I had no idea what her reaction was. She didn't reply, but it felt good to know I wasn't the one being played anymore. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story any longer. Then came a message from my brother Robert. He'd been a silent supporter through all of this, not fully aware of the extent of Jake and Tina's betrayal, but knowing something was terribly wrong. He called me, his voice tight with concern. "You need to talk to me," he said. "I'm done with Tina." I didn't know what to say. I was tired. I had heard enough excuses, enough fake apologies to last a lifetime. But Robert needed to know. He needed the full truth, so I told him everything. Every single detail, about Jake, about Tina, about how I had found out about their affair, the stolen money, everything. "I knew something was off," Robert said quietly when I finished. "But I never thought she would go that far. I'm so sorry, sis. You didn't deserve any of this." I could hear the anger in his voice. He was furious with Tina for what she had done, and for the first time, I felt a small sense of relief. I wasn't alone in this. My family was on my side. Robert was on my side. A few days later, Robert texted me again. "I talked to Tina," he said. "She's staying with me for now. But I don't want her to think she can just slide back into our family like nothing happened." It felt good to know that Robert wasn't giving her a free pass. That he was standing by me and holding Tina accountable for what she had done. By now, my lawyer had begun preparing for the divorce proceedings. I didn't want to drag it out, but I also didn't want to just let Jake off the hook. He had to face the consequences of his actions, and I wasn't going to make it easy for him. My lawyer advised me to be patient, to let things play out, and to focus on moving forward. I had already started making plans for my future. I found an apartment I loved, small but cozy, and I started furnishing it. I even signed up for a meal kit service so I could start cooking for myself instead of relying on takeout. It felt empowering to take control of my life again, to make decisions for me, and me alone. I wasn't waiting for Jake to change anymore. I was moving on without him. The days after I moved out were a blur. Jake kept trying, texting, calling, leaving voicemails, begging for forgiveness. He switched between anger and desperation, from defensive to apologetic. But nothing he said mattered anymore. Every word felt empty, like a hollow attempt to salvage something he had destroyed. I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't going to be manipulated again. I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to let his lies define me anymore. I wasn't going to let Tina's betrayal linger in my heart. There were moments when the grief would hit me like a wave. When I thought about the love I had once shared with Jake, the trust one had placed in him, the bond one thought I had with Tina. But then, I would remember everything they had done. I would remember how they had stolen from me, not just my money, but my dignity, my happiness, and my sense of safety in my own life. And in those moments, I realized something powerful. The worst part wasn't just the affair, or the money. It was the fact that they didn't even care enough to hide it. They didn't care enough to protect me from the hurt they were causing. They treated me like an afterthought, a footnote in their selfish, twisted story. But I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was done with their games. Done with the apologies. Done with the pretending like everything could go back to how it was. So I kept moving forward. I focused on what I could control, my life, my choices, my future. And then, just as I thought things might finally be quieting down, I heard from Robert. He had spoken to Tina. After everything she had put me through, she had the nerve to try and explain herself, to paint herself as the victim, as if she had no idea how badly she had hurt me. But Robert wasn't having it. He told her the truth. She wasn't a victim. She was a liar. He said he was done with her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a small sense of justice. At least someone in this mess wasn't pretending everything was okay. It felt like I was finally being seen, like my feelings mattered. I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong, and I was beginning to understand that the weight of their betrayal wasn't something I had to carry forever. I kept focusing on myself. I found a new apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It had good natural light, a small balcony, and a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. I signed up for a meal kit service and actually started cooking. I spent hours at the farmer's market, buying fresh ingredients and learning to make real meals. It was the little things I never had time for before, that started to heal me. But even as I rebuilt, Jake kept trying. He showed up at my door again, flowers in hand, promising that he had changed, that he would do anything to make things right. But it was too late. I didn't need his apologies anymore. I didn't need him to fix anything. I had fixed myself. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up. And I wasn't going to let him walk back into it. One day I got a message from Tina. It was the same old routine. Desperate, pathetic apologies, begging for forgiveness. I never meant for any of this to happen, she wrote. I was confused. Please, can we talk? I didn't even read the rest. I deleted it immediately. I didn't have the energy to deal with her anymore. I had spent so much time wondering why she did this to me, why she chose him over me. But now, I saw it for what it was, her selfishness, her own insecurities, her need to fill the void in her life by hurting others. And I couldn't let that be my problem anymore. As time went on, I started to feel lighter. The anger that had consumed me for weeks slowly started to fade. I wasn't angry at Jake anymore, or Tina. I was angry at myself for letting them hurt me for so long. But that anger was starting to turn into something else, something more powerful. It was a recognition of my own strength. I had survived this. I had made it through the worst betrayal I could imagine, and I was still standing. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. Jake didn't fight it. He didn't have the energy to anymore. The settlement was fair, and I got what I needed to start over. It wasn't a win, but it was a step toward reclaiming my life. It felt like the closing of a chapter that I had been trapped in for far too long. I don't know what the future holds. There are still days when I wake up and feel the weight of what happened. There are still moments when I remember the person I thought Jake was, or the bond one once had with Tina. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. The life I'm building now is mine. I am learning to trust myself again, to make decisions that are right for me and no one else. I've learned that I don't need anyone to validate my worth. I don't need anyone to tell me I deserve better. I know it now. And that's the most freeing thing of all.